Hey guys, it's Bobcat. Alright, so I just watched the Godzilla anime the other night. I think it was a Monster Planet or whatever. And I watched it and I thought it was pretty cool, really cool. I'm not gonna lie, it was really cool. And I'm really happy that Toho finally made a Godzilla anime. I'm not much of an anime person, so I'm not like into anime that much, but I mean, up until recently, it recently dawned on me that that Toho had never even made a Godzilla anime, before now, I guess, some like, which, I was like, oh, I mean, which is kind of funny because they made that Godzilla cartoon like back in the 90s, you know, but and as well as the one by Hanna-Barbera back in the 70s or 80s. But, it's like, oh, this is Japan's first anime. Whatever. It's whatever. So I watched the first movie or episode, whatever they call it, the first thing that they have put out so far, and I really liked it. I mean, it was very different. It was very different, I'll be honest, but I really liked it. I really did, and I like that Toho is doing new things with Godzilla to try to keep the franchise alive. I mean, yeah, some of the decisions some of the things that they do, I understand most fans feel kind of about, but you know what? You'll never know until you try. So, I liked it. I really liked it. I mean, my only thing was, Godzilla was a plant, which, most of you Godzilla fans probably are aware, even if you haven't seen it, but I'm still debating on how I feel about that. I'm, I kind of have this weird, right now I don't know how to feel about it, I mean, it's interesting that, yeah, the humans, they could, basically the human race, even with the help of aliens, were overpowered by Godzilla, and so they escape, and then they come back, and whatever. I like the plot. I do like the plot. I really like the plot of it, but I mean, but as far as like what Godzilla is, I mean, like I don't know how I feel about him being a plant, So for right now, I'm not gonna say whether I like it or dislike it because I'm still debating. I mean, I knew he was gonna be a plant, going in before I watched it, but I'm still undecided. His new powers though are pretty cool. Like his atomic breath is different, I like that. Change things up a little, and that's one of the other moves he used. I think was like, what was it? Like Sonic Roar, or something like that. And he had like another one or two cool powers, which, some extra powers. It's always a plus. Gotta have some new stuff going on. What was the other? Oh, and I'm excited to see how the like rest of the trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. Anyway, I want to see how the rest of it kind of unfolds. My So overall, I really liked it. There's, and that's coming from an anime. I mean, a non-anime person, The CGI was pretty nice. I mean, at least for an anime, you know. Most of the anime I've seen aren't CG, but the only so far the only I don't want to say negative, but like the only qualm I have with it right now is just kind of like kind of the pacing of the movie. And not that it's, I mean, the pacing is not awful. The pacing is much better than the last couple Godzilla movies we've had. I mean, Legendary Godzilla dragged out a little too much, whereas Shin Gojira was, you know, very rapid and choppy, you know. And I'll talk more about them individually in future videos. But for this movie, I mean, don't get me wrong, those two were good movies, you know. But for this movie, I mean, this movie was not as extreme as those two were, but like the pacing, I felt like could have been. I felt like the beginning was rushed. You know, I felt like the beginning was very rushed, whereas the middle, it was kind of not boring, but it could have been. I felt like the middle, kind of the middle third, or whatever, you know, could have been summed up in like shorter amount of time. And what I think is even, what I consider a little more importantly is the beginning, like the very beginning. Like they talk about, like they basically set up the premise of the movie. You know, I felt like they kind of, the beginning I felt like they just rushed through. You know, this is Godzilla, you know, here he is, here's how he came to be, you know. There are also other monsters that came to be. Similarly, they start attacking us. Godzilla was the worst one of it all. And despite the alien efforts to help us by giving us Mechagodzilla, you know, the Mechagodzilla failed, and we had no choice but to leave Earth. You know, I mean, it wasn't, obviously it wasn't that bad. I mean, I kind of exaggerated it a little, but like, I felt like it was, a little bit rushed, and like, it's like, oh, they made a Mechagodzilla. They didn't show us Mechagodzilla. I wanted to see what that thing would look like. I mean, there was like one little part where they're like, ugh, our Mechagodzilla failed. It's like, oh, failed? I didn't even see it start. You know, and like they were looking at a screen and apparently on that little screen there was like an image of like the Mechagodzilla or whatever. Like you could barely tell what the heck it looked like. I don't know. Like, I just felt like the beginning. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like they just wanted to zoom through and just hurry up and lay out the whole setting of premise of the movie so that they can hurry up and get to the flight. Which I'm not saying that the middle part was not important. It had its importance. I just felt like it could have been. I felt like the middle could have been condensed just a little bit, and the ending was fine. Like the last third or whatever, like the ending was fine. It was just kind of the middle. I felt like could have certain things about the middle. I felt like could have just been condensed at least a little bit, and the beginning should have been. I felt like should have been fleshed out much more. It's like it literally showed at the very beginning. It showed some of the monsters for like literally a few seconds each. Like I think you saw Kamacuras, Orga, I don't remember some of the others. I think I feel like there was a couple others aside from Godzilla and Mechagodzilla in the beginning. But I don't remember whoever else it was. That's how fast they zoomed through it. It's like, you know, and I just felt like the certain things they just overall. I think the movie may have ended up being either the same length or just a little bit longer than what we got, you know. But like, again, that's just kind of my nitpicking, you know. As far as like the rest of the movie goes, I think if they would have fleshed out the beginning more, you know, at least adequately, you know, rather than zoom through it, you know, that would have compensated for, at least showed us a little more Godzilla, and showed us what Godzilla looked like back then, say, you know, and just to see what design they would do with Godzilla before it becomes a plant, you know, and, you know, give us a little more monster screen time, you know, which, to add a little more monster screen time is, I mean, not a bad thing. Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the human interaction is boring or, you know, irrelevant. I mean, some parts of it were a little boring, but I mean, like, I'm not trying to, you know, demean their importance, but I mean, you know, why not just add a little monster to it too? But overall, I liked it. It was honestly a good movie, and I'm especially happy that, you know, they at least made a Godzilla anime, something that they've never done before with Godzilla. So keep it real. All right, that's all I have to say about it. Stay big, G fans.